Welcome to Week 5 Fantasy Roundup with Ruben and Ryan. We're here to give you some starting advice for your DraftKings weekly lineup. We're going to do a little bit different this week. I'm going to give you the lineup I've chosen for some contests that I'm going to enter, and we're going to give you some other suggestions for players that are good values at each position. The quarterback I'm going with this week is Ben Roethlisberger at 7,400, playing at Jacksonville. I picked Roethlisberger because he's going against one of the worst defenses in the league. He's come on of late, the past couple weeks. He's got Antonio Brown and Heath Miller as two of his main targets. I think he's a great value at 7,400. Do you have any other quarterbacks you'd sort of suggest for this week, Ruben?
Yeah, Ryan, I think Roethlisberger is a pretty good pick at $7,400. A couple of other quarterbacks I've been eyeing here include Andrew Luck. He's at $8,700. He's by far the number one fantasy QB so far this season, and so at $8,700, he's still a very good value. But the one quarterback that I am selecting is Phil Rivers, just simply because the Jets have given up the fifth most points in fantasy. They still can't run the ball. They're playing at home. Phil Rivers has been very solid. And so for $7,000 at home against the Jets, I think he's a great deal. Also try to keep an eye on Eli Manning and Drew Brees. Drew Brees, yes, he's $8,900, but if you don't like some of the other names that we've mentioned thus far, Drew Brees has yet to throw 3 TDs in a game. He's going to eventually have a 3 TD game, and at home, his home-away splits definitely favor his home game, so I think it's going to finally happen this week. And then with Eli Manning, the Giants' offense is improving, and Atlanta's defense, they're playing the Falcons. Atlanta's defense is terrible, especially against the run, but I think the passing game has opened up, and at $7,500, I think he's a pretty good deal. Now, for quarterbacks that I would stay away from, Ryan, I'd probably stay away from Nick Foles. I don't trust the Eagles' offense completely. I don't think they're terrible, but I don't think they're going to be the 30-point juggernauts that you expect or that everyone expected. St. Louis's defense is middle of the pack, but at $8,500, I think he's too expensive. And I would be careful with Matt Ryan, even though he's been great in fantasy this year. He's got some offensive line issues. The offensive line is really banged up. And then at $8,100, I think he's way too expensive. And then Jay Cutler. The Carolina, their defense has been subpar to say the least, and you can be the first one to testify to that. But I think the Panthers are not a bottom 10 defense as they are currently ranked, and I think the Bears are going to struggle on the road. Jay Cutler always has that propensity to have a huge turnover game, and I think Carolina is going to at least somewhat turn it around. Any quarterbacks of the year kind of shy or would want to stay away from this particular week?
No, I really want to stay away from that. You did not mention, but my payback special, my Steve Smith Sr. Payback player this week is going to be Alex Smith, going back to San Francisco. I don't expect him to have the 3-touchdown, 0-interception game that he had on Monday night, but at $6,400, I think he's a great value. He's going to want to play well. Andy Reid's going to want him to play well in his revenge game. So I think if you're trying to save money at the quarterback position and load up at running back and receiver, Alex Smith for $6,400 to pull a Steve Smith Sr. Against San Francisco this week. The running backs I went with for Week 5 I went with Giovanni Bernard at $6,700 playing at New England, and then Rashad Jennings at $5,500 playing at home against Atlanta. You saw last week Atlanta couldn't stop the Vikings' two-headed running back monster, and they're just not good on the road, and they're not good at stopping the running game. So I think Jennings could have 20-plus carries, 5 or 6 receptions, and over 100 total yards on offense. And then Bernard, they're coming off the bye week. They're playing a Patriots defense that got destroyed by the Chiefs on Monday night. They got a short week. Bernard's rested. Look for him to have again over 100 yards, 5 or 6 receptions. So at $6,700, a great value. Are there any other running backs you'd recommend for this week?
Yeah, Ryan. Just a real quick tidbit here. You were talking about Alex Smith. Alex Smith, very few people know this. He was actually a ghostwriter for "Hit 'Em Up," Tupac's famous song against Biggie. And so if you look closely on the cameras last week, there was actually a tattoo across his abs that said Thug Life. And so, yes, there is vengeance on his mind. So when you think about tough guys, think about Alex Smith.
You don't make Alex Smith mad. Don't make him mad.
Running backs you just selected with Rashad Jennings and Bernard. I got Rashad Jennings in my lineup. The other running back I have in my lineup is Le'Veon Bell. He's been a yardage monster. Watching his games, you see that he's a special talent. He's very patient, and I think against Jacksonville, it's finally going to pay off in the end zone. I think he's going to visit the end zone multiple times this game. Pittsburgh's going to score a lot. I think they may do well through the air, but I'm certain they're going to do well on the ground. And at $7,300, he's the sixth most expensive running back. I think he's a great deal. A couple of other running backs I'd keep my eye on would be Bishop Sankey at $4,700. They're playing Cleveland at home. Cleveland has been very susceptible to the run on defense this year. I think Bishop Sankey is making some strides and gains. Eventually he's going to get the lion's share of the carries, and so I think this might be his breakout week at $4,700. I think he's a good bet. And then Darren Reeves. You're like, who the heck is Darren Reeves? Well, we know that the Panthers' running back core is depleted. He hasn't shown anything special yet. He hasn't looked electric or anything like that. But at $3,000 against a depleted Bears defense at home, I think it's a risk worth taking if you don't like some of the names that we've already mentioned. Some running backs I would stay away from would include Matt Forte. Matt Forte is the most expensive running back along with LaShawn McCoy. My other stay-away running back, both are at $7,800. Matt Forte, he might do his usual, 80, 90 yards, but I say there's a 1 in 3 chance he scores. He just doesn't score enough. And, in these weekly leagues, you want an explosion. And with McCoy, I hate to jump off the McCoy bandwagon because I think he'll eventually come back, but I just don't think it's going to happen this week. Like I said, I don't think the Rams' defense is that bad. And right now, the offense just seems a little out of sync, and as you mentioned, the offensive line is having some issues. And then a couple other running backs I would be wary of include Monty Ball and Doug Martin at $6,500 and $6,100 respectively. I don't necessarily like their matchups, especially for Doug Martin. I think New Orleans is going to score a lot, forcing Tampa Bay to pass a lot, and I don't think that's going to bode well for Doug Martin. All right, so for my receiving crew, I have Michael Floyd and DeAndre Hopkins. Floyd's coming in at $5,300, Hopkins at $4,800. I think both are kind of mid-tier receivers that are undervalued right now. Michael Floyd going against the Cardinals at home. We got Patrick Peterson, who's probably going to cover Thomas. That are going to probably cover Fitzgerald, So I think Floyd is going to have some opportunities. I got that mixed up there. Michael Floyd.
I'm surprised that I would think Michael Floyd would do well against the Cardinals because since that's his own team.
Exactly. He's so dangerous this week that he's going to score against the Broncos and his own team, the Cardinals.
He's that good.
At $5,300, he should be worth $10,600. And then DeAndre Hopkins, the guy makes amazing one-handed catches. He's been the most consistent Texans receiver, and for some reason, he's only $4,800. What receivers are you liking or starting this week, Ryan?
The 3 receivers I'm going with this week are Keenan Allen at $5,800 playing the Jets at home, Jeremy Maclin at $5,600 playing against St. Louis, and then Emmanuel Sanders at only $5,100 playing at home against the Denver Broncos, as you would say. But playing against the Cardinals, they're at home. Emmanuel Sanders is a target monster. He hasn't scored a lot of touchdowns, but in a points per reception league like in DraftKings, he's just so valuable. He's always a threat to get 8 to 10 receptions because he's always getting to get the second or third best cornerback. And Peyton's going to find whoever's open. And Sanders is good enough to beat a second or third cornerback, even on a good defense like Arizona.
Plus, Emmanuel Sanders was the star of many Skinamax movies back in the 90s. So just keep that in mind.
I will. I definitely will. I always try to find those Skinamax stars as I'm making my lineups. Keenan Reuben Allen really came on last week, and he was sort of quiet in the first 3 weeks, so look for him to continue against a weak Jets pass defense. They're great against the run. So Donald Duck Brown probably is not going to do very much. So if they want to score, they're going to have to do it through the air. And Keenan Allen obviously is his best receiver for, as you say, Phil Rivers. For my tight end this week, I'm going with Travis Kelce. For some reason, he's only 3,000. If anyone watched the Monday night game, Kelce is the #1 target for Alex Noodle Arm Smith. And so even though Dwayne Bowe looked pretty good last week against the Patriots, Kelce, when he's on the field, he's always the top target. So at 3,000, that's a great way to save some money while still being able to get some production from the tight end position. Are there any other tight ends you may recommend for this week?
Yeah, a couple you should keep your eye if you're a pirate, your eyes on. If you're not a pirate, would be Delaney Walker at $4,300. I think he's still undervalued. His value has been increasing on a weekly basis, but I mean the guy gets targeted 12, 14 times a week, so capitalize while you can. And then the no-name Brandon Myers at $3,000. He's very inexpensive as well. Playing against New Orleans, I think New Orleans is going to get out to a lead. I think they're going to play like a soft Tampa 2 defense against Tampa. And I think that's going to open things up underneath. And so I think Brandon Myers can take advantage of that. And so, yeah, $3,000, I think it's another risk worth taking, or, that's a low-risk, high-reward player. A particular tight end I'd stay away from is a guy who's coming back. We don't know how healthy he is. We don't know really how effective he's going to be with the new coaching staff and new offensive scheme. Jordan Cameron, he's at $4,400. I think that's way too expensive, so stay away from him. And then moving on to defenses, the defense that I'm starting this week for the tight end I'm starting this week, it's Brandon Meyer, excuse me. And then for the defense I'm starting this week, it's the Chargers. The Chargers play the Jets at home. I've seen some things in the news about Geno Smith getting into it with fans. I think he's showing some signs of being a young quarterback, maybe immature, like us. And so Geno Smith at any point could have one of those, just breakdown games where he has 4 or 5 turnovers. Chargers are very good at home. And at $3,100, they're one of the cheaper defenses overall, much less for a home game against the Jets. And then for a stay-away defense, a defense that seems very good on paper, but I would stay away from, is the Bengals at $3,800. Yes, they're the #1 defense on average, and yes, they're playing New England, who just got massacred by Kansas City, but I think New England's going to somewhat rebound. And I don't think that the Bengals are at least going to get a lot of turnovers from the Patriots playing, in New England. So I would stay away from the Bengals considering their price at $3,800. Overall, the strategy that Ryan and I are employing here is not only the obvious recommends and stayaways based off of the opponents that you see listed in their rankings in green and red, but we're also trying to give you suggestions here based on matchups that apparently seem good, but we have a bad feeling about, or matchups that apparently seem bad, but we have a good feeling about. And I think that's where we could really help you with this fantasy advice. You got any concluding thoughts?
Well, for my defensive pick, I have the Eagles. They're playing St. Louis. St. Louis had the bye week last week, but they're going to be on the road in Philadelphia, and you're not really sure who their quarterback's going to be. They don't have any really explosive players on offense. So I don't think the Eagles are going to have a 3-touchdown performance with their special teams and defense. I do think they'll get enough sacks and turnovers and keep the score low enough where they're definitely a value at $3,300. The last position I have that we need to talk about is just the flex position. I think that's what's great about DraftKings is they allow you to have that flex position so you can load up with a 4th running back or a 4th receiver or a 3rd running back. I went with the 3rd running back, and I went with the best running back in the league right now is DeMarco Murray at $7,500, playing at home against Houston. I think he's a great value. He's always a threat to get over 100 yards rushing. Houston's been shown this year that they can be run on by teams they played in the first 4 weeks. He gets a good amount of targets out of the backfield, always a threat to score. So I think at 7,500, he's a great value for a flex spot or for your running back position because he's just been so dominant this year behind one of the best blocking offensive lines in the league right now. Other than that, I think just make sure you play with DraftKings. And if you have any questions, please hit us up on our Twitter account. Ruben, why don't you tell our Twitter account again real quick?
Yes, it's @FantasyProfs, PROFS, and we're always wanting to give out suggestions, advice. It brightens our day when we see something pop up on the Twitter feed. So once again, @FantasyProfs.
All right, well, good luck in your Week 5 DraftKings weekly matchups.